Yeah, here we go. Thanks, Doc. Right, so once again, welcome and thank you for joining today's talk. On the agenda, we'll be doing, I'll just handle a quick introduction and a greeting and a welcome of everybody. I'd like to then hand over to Quentin, who will just give us a quick direction on the functional area of project management within MOYO, and just give us an alignment in in that regard. Thereafter, I'd hand over to Dr. Ludik, who's going to take us through the topic of discussion today, which is the synergies and amalgamation of AI AI and project management. And we'll just end off the session with a quick feedback survey on how everyone found the session today. Something that I felt quite strongly to include today as well is just a quick safety share. And that safety share, I'd like to just make around, number one, the cold fronts that we're currently experiencing within the country, and with that, obviously brings a lot of behaviors where we're either pulling out our extra electric blankets, we're heating up our fireplaces, pulling out the heaters that we potentially haven't used since last year this time. And together with that, my concern goes out to just those behaviors, and just asking that we remain mindful of those practices. So if you're taking out a heater that you haven't used in a very long time, to make sure that all of its electronics is working fine, that the plug points are fine. If you have any frayed wires, anything like that, to make sure that those are all repaired before using those items. Those are generally areas for quick fires, electric shorts and electric fires, and we know how quickly those can catch on within our homes. Bedding, curtains, wooden floors, cupboards, those they take off very, very quickly. So just very, very important, just around the safety of ourselves, our family members, those closest to us. If we just ensure that we follow correct practice in that regard, making sure to switch those items off when not in use or when someone is not in the room, and also ensuring that you've got proper ventilation when having either fireplace fires or any other form of heating that you are using that can consume the oxygen in the room. Very, very important if we can all just remain cognizant of that. And on that, does anybody have anything that you'd like to add by way of safety share? Right. Then with that, I'd like to hand over to Quentin. Quentin, if you would like to address us.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. Welcome, everybody. I think this is most certainly a personal interest that I have in this topic. So I'm very excited to also hear and get some ideas as to how this works and how we can incorporate it. I think from a PM functional area within the organization, this is definitely aligned with our strategy and roadmap. It's already part of the discussions that we are having. And I think one of the key points that stands out for me is we've often heard that the new kid on the block is adaptability, specifically during this pandemic, that we need to be adaptable, we need to be flexible. But I think if we take a step back and we look at what the TQ actually means for us is our ability to integrate the use of technology so that we can actually, through the use of technology, enable the adaptability that we talk about and the adaptability that we need. Not during this pandemic alone. I think just in this whole transformation towards a more digital world, and in the broader society, just being more adaptable in our approach, specifically to project management in this instance. So certainly looking forward to this. In terms of the function as project management within MOYO, most of our MOYO colleagues would have probably heard we refer to the VAC. The VAC is not the vaccine. We're not there yet, but hopefully we'll offer that soon. But it's our value assurance center, right? And I think this is part of the value creation that we are after. And as part of the processes that we're going to embed, We're going to certainly look at these concepts more of how we integrate AI specifically. And those are all of the smaller things that I think elevates and lifts the abilities and the skills required for the DNA of a new project manager in the future. I think the days are gone where project managers are just looking after a schedule and managing project level risk. I think we are certainly heading towards a bit of a shift in the thinking, and these technical skills, in other words, the enabling of interpreting data and utilizing mechanisms such as AI to interpret data and predict, is definitely on the list of core skills that our project managers needs, and we are going to empower and enable our project managers to do just that. So not going to steal more time than that from this discussion. So thank you very much, Justin.
Thank you so much, Quentin. No, absolutely, that there's a definite synergy and alignment in terms of what it is MOYO stands for, what it is MOYO's roadmap is, and there's that which Dr. Ludik and CortexLogic bring to the table. Just before I do a formal introduction of Dr. Ludik, there are any first-time members or guys who are not part of the project management community of practice, if you'd like to join, I ask that you connect with any one of our working group members. We will share this with the MOYO community again, but there's a number of individuals that you can reach out to. We've got a Teams page that you're able to join on, and we'll involve you in our practices going forward. And on that note, it brings us to the time where we get to hear from our esteemed guest, Dr. Jacques Ludik. Dr. Ludik is the founder and current CEO of CortexLogic, which is an AI company. Dr. Ludik is a smart technology entrepreneur, an expert and a founder of multiple AI companies, an author of the book Democratizing Artificial Intelligence to Benefit Everyone, and the list goes on. So I'm not going to try and rattle off all of Dr. Ludik's accomplishments and qualifications, more than to just say this. When I met with one of Dr. Ludik's colleagues, Charles Peterson, who's on the line with us as well, there was an immediate synergy and an immediate realization that which their organization stands for is very much in line with what our leadership and directorship stand for, and how MOYO came about. And what stood out, especially for me, was at the end of Dr. Ludik's his portfolio, his profile. Thank you, Doc. It speaks of his how he's massive. I think I lost a word there, Doc.
Massive transformative purpose, yeah. He's massive transformative purpose. I think you accidentally deleted that.
When we were speaking,
words of transformative purpose.
So Dr. Ludik's transformative purpose is to help shape a better future in the smart technology era, and specifically to help businesses and society thrive and to help transform Africa. And Doc, if Charles and Con have not shared with you yet, just the name MOYO, our organization, what it stands for is it means heart, right? So MOYO translates to heart, and that which we stand for as an organization is really just towards transforming society and creating a better South Africa and essentially a better Africa. As we venture out into the world. So I think that for me was just very, very important, over and above the skills and everything else that we bring to the table, is the why. The why was very important. And on that note, I'd like to hand over to you, Dr. Ludik. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to ask you to share, and you can take us through your view on artificial intelligence and project management.
Fantastic. Justin, thanks for that fantastic introduction. I just want to make a click. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Fantastic. So without further ado, I'll go ahead. I just want to say, my massive transformative purpose in the companies and even the non-profit organizations that I'm involved in is really how to shape that better future in the smart technology era. We want all of society to thrive, businesses to thrive, and how can we use smart technology to help enable that, and not the other way around. So I'll speak a little bit about that. Obviously, I referenced that in the book as well. We can keep this also interactive, so I'll go through the material. If you want to ask questions, you can pose them in the chat as well. There will hopefully be time afterwards as well. If it's important questions, I'm happy to address. I like to keep things super interactive as well. And there's a lot to cover here as well. So without further ado, let me quickly start here. So you'll probably find this on my website and LinkedIn, where I talk about the things that I'm involved in. And I actually, the massive transformative purpose is straight at the top there, shaping a better future in the smart technology era. And when I talk about the smart technology era, I think some people refer to it as the fourth industrial revolution, but it's more than just industrial. It's really, we see the impact of smart technology on our lives. And I will talk a little bit about that, because even within the context of AI in project management, it's very important to have that context in the world, in terms of the world that we live. I just mentioned some of the companies. Justin referenced CortexLogic, which is part of the Cortex Group. There's also the Machine Intelligence Institute of Africa, which is a non-profit organization that's really focused on transforming Africa through AI and building capacity. We also have MICT CETA accreditation for providing data science, AI, machine learning courses. In the book, I referenced Sapiens.network. The book is on the right there. Okay, so I'm not going to go into my details. You're most welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, on various social media platforms. We'll also make the slide deck available. Most of the slide deck talks about AI and specific applications of AI in project management as well. But if I just look at all the things that I've been involved in, my whole career has been built on AI or AI applications. I've been involved in that effectively. But if I look at this, I see a lot of this is also like projects as well, even writing a book or building a business or delivering a product or delivering solutions for customers globally, in terms of what I did with C-Sense, with Cortex, at General Electric, at Jumo. Everything is pretty much project driven. So it's very relevant, and it's quite interesting for me, having been obviously involved in AI applications and products and businesses and writing books around this, etc., that you can actually apply AI also to the project management process itself. And not that I have done that a lot, but as you instrument projects and you get more data available, that opportunities opens up. So I'll be referencing that quite a bit. So briefly on the smart technology era. The smart technology era, what is it? It's really, I think we live in a digital revolution, clearly, and it is characterized by the fusion of new technologies, of which AI is one. Well, there's a number of other technologies, nanotech, biotech. There's blockchain technologies that's going to be enormously disruptive as well, and the combinations of these. So I'm talking about the fusion of these new technologies. And they are blurring the lines between the physical, the digital, and the biological worlds. And it's really impacting everything, disciplines, all disciplines, economies, industries. And I think very importantly, we also stand with this opportunity here for us to redefine or to think about what it means to be human, and to make sure that we use smart technology in the right way, not the other way around, that it's actually serves us. And I'll talk about that. And I actually covered this quite a bit in the book. There's a whole chapter that's dealing with what it means to be human in the 21st century, and thinking about our own massive transformative purpose, thinking about the massive transformative purpose of humanity. I even have proposals in that regard as well. Okay, so we know, I've already mentioned that it is affecting, and it will affect our lives and work and play, and the way we interact and relate to one another. It will affect that in fundamental ways, and it would be and that's why we need to be responsible in terms of how we want to utilize this technology with wisdom. Okay, so I'm gonna. This is a slide that's actually from SoftBank originally. I've just customized a little bit, but it's quite informative because on the x-axis we see time, on the y-axis we see value, and it's typically in this case business value. And from you can extract quite a bit of value, obviously initially, if you look at the history of humankind, from agriculture, fishery, metals, etc. Then on top of that, sorry? Okay. And then on top of that, I think there's the industrial financial world, where industries and sectors where we unlock tremendous value. And then from 1995 to 2019, we see the internet era. And what we see now, it was quite interesting. When I sold my first AI company, General Electric, 2011, that previous decade was really where you see the oil and gas companies and the companies of the likes of General Electric and so forth being dominant. But then, since then, you see the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Googles, all these kind of companies, internet-driven companies coming to the fore and being the dominant players in the world. Now, if you think about the internet as well, that's also part of instrumenting the world, generating a lot more data around people, around processes, etc. And I'll be talking about this towards the latter part. But the moment we generate a lot more data with sensors, with phones, with social media, with the internet, it opens up the door for technologies such as AI that thrive on data to unlock a lot more value. And AI is actually just a proxy for smart technology. There's other smart technologies that's benefiting from this as well. But AI is probably the most impactful one, but it's all integrated. For me, I'm looking at smart technology. That's why I talk about the smart technology era. And this slide is just illustrating that fusion of technologies, because it's not just AI, it's biotech, neurotech, nanotech, all these other things coming into play, 3D printing, robotics, drones, etc. And it's because of those combination of technologies, our toolbox, our smart technology toolbox has effectively become a lot bigger and more impactful, so we can do a lot more. It opens up the doors in terms of so many things that we can do. So that's why it's so important. And that's why we also see the speed of technology change also accelerating. And as humans, we are used to seeing, experiencing time as linear. But that's why we are surprised when we see exponential changes or exponential events happening. Now, back to business. If you're thinking about project management and you think about business and you want to see how can business and project management in general benefit from smart technology, for me, it always starts with the business value drivers. And obviously with a project management is about what is those outcomes of that project. You can also define the project value drivers effectively as well. And across business, it's really, and this is where AI and smart technology can benefit and can make a difference as well. So if you look at those business value drivers, you can increase productivity, you increase revenue, you can reduce risk, and you can lower costs. Now, this is within the business context, but this is absolutely relevant within a project context as well. So it's all about increasing operational efficiency, effectiveness, and revenue. And the way I'm looking at the world, if you look at and I also categorize it like this in the book as well, you get the consumer-facing world, so you can do project management within a consumer-facing business setup, but then there's also project management and businesses specifically in the industrial sector. Now, if you're in the industrial sector, then it's all about throughput, increasing yield, quality. If you're engaging with consumers and customers, it's about cross-selling, upselling, recommendations, all of those type of things. With any business, there's opportunities to increase the automation, improving the processes, the equipment availability, especially in the industrial space. And then you want to reduce risk. And obviously there it's about process and equipment failure. It's about, if you look at consumer-facing businesses, it's about customer churn. You don't want your customers to churn. If you think about fraud, waste, and abuse, that's a risk, clearly. And then the other big one is cybersecurity. that affects pretty much all businesses, because as the more we digitize businesses, there's a major risk on the cybersecurity front. So you need to cover that. And then on lowering costs, you want to eliminate redundancy. This is all relevant for project management as well. You want to obviously look at your energy and raw material usage, your operations and maintenance. So those are typical things, business value drivers. But then also with data, the more data you create, there is also strategic value, where you can actually have faster, better, more proactive decisions. Again, for a business relevant, but also from a project management relevant. And then also, because of the data is the new oil. It's an incredible asset, actually. And based on that, you can also create new business models, new revenue growth opportunities, better collaboration, innovation, smarter R&D and forecasting, those type of things. And then if you think about customer or consumer-facing businesses, you've got enhanced customer experience, targeted sales and marketing. That's all made possible by real-time, on-demand, digital, personalized service delivery, assistance, and advice. And this is where things like even intelligent virtual assistants, and I'll be talking about that within a project management context as well, comes into play. But again, the things around enhancing efficiencies, reducing process times and costs, targeted sales and marketing, and all of this is based on a 360-degree insights about the customer. So this kind of, these three buckets kind of just summarizes some of the value that can be unlocked for businesses, and I believe also for projects. I think as we move forward in this smart technology era, we need to realize that the world that we've entered here, we see different types of intelligences where smart technology can be applied in different ways. So it could, first of all, assist, it could also augment, and it could also be just purely autonomous, especially if you think about self-driving cars, or you think about portfolio optimization, trading, those type of things. And I'm giving some examples here as well. So assisted intelligence is typically where the nature of the task don't change, and tasks are automated, and humans don't learn, and machines learn. So that's assisted intelligence. And you can apply it to machinery, processes in factories, boilers, ovens, etc. Augmented intelligence is where you can actually use, and this is where specifically in project management context, it's also relevant, business strategy analysis using machine learning, smart clinical decision support. So you can actually use it for decision support also in project management. And here the nature of the tasks do change. Humans inform machines, machines inform humans, which is then different from autonomous intelligence, where machines learn continuously and decisions are automated, etc. So we are on this man-machine intelligence continuum. There's also different ways of looking at exactly that, where you can say human in the loop and human not in the loop. So there's two categories there. And then you can say it's hardwired specific systems, where you can see more the assisted intelligence and pure automation of very specific tasks. And then on the bottom here, you get more adaptive systems, where it's really about augmented intelligence and autonomous intelligence. Then I want to quickly talk about, just briefly before I get into the specifics of AI specifically, and then AI in project management, just want to talk about the AI-driven digital transformation catalyst to generate business value. And this is really very important from a project management, from a business perspective. If you think about digital transformation or AI-driven digital transformation, there's really 5 elements of successful AI transformations. And it always starts with the intent, the strategy, the use cases, the sources of value. So that goes back to the business value. What do you, even if you think about project management, what is the specific objectives of the project, the outcomes? Those are very, very important to be clear on that. But then the other 4 of the 5 is very important. So data, technology, process, and people. And we shouldn't forget about any of these, especially when you implement data and use data and you implement technology. What is the impact? What is the effect? What is the impact on processes? What is the impact on people? So it's very important to look at those kind of things. And if you want to accelerate the path to value generation, you look at time on the axis here and you want to bring it back, then you need to look at all of these holistically as well. So you need to look at data availability. You need to look at your technology, the tools, the platforms, the distributed computing. You need to look at your people as well, the skills availability, but also the impact the change that you are bringing to the fore. What's the impact on people? And you want to make sure that the organization is also aligned in terms of this. You can't just willy-nilly or just apply this without thinking about the impact as well. And then the process and change management, super important. So you can think about this in a responsible way. And here I'm breaking down in a bit more detail. So I'm not going to go too much detail in the interest of time, but it's worthwhile. I'll share this deck anyway, so you can go into more details here as well. But what I maybe would just want to emphasize, if you think about people in terms of open culture and organization, you want to adopt an open collaborative culture. We want to build trust in AI insights and systems, and you want to reskill the workforce to ensure complementarity, so that you can actually work in symbiosis with the AI-driven systems as well. So I think that is very, very important. This is something that I've used over the years in various companies, even in C-Sense, General Electric, also at Jumo, and also obviously in CortexLogic and as part of the Cortex Group, and the businesses that we have there as well. I think it's very important. You can look at the 5 pillars, the intent, technology, people, data, and process. And then you can look at your own maturity and how you actually improve on that. And what you typically can do, you can define 5 stages for each of the 5 pillars. You can say, am I in an ad hoc state with regards to intent, process, data, people, technology, or opportunistic, or repeatable, or managed, or optimized state? And then you can actually, if you map this, you can actually see how you go from maybe where everything is ad hoc to where everything is optimized or at least managed. And this is just defining that. So it's a useful structure to think about things, all the different components that are important. You might be good with technology or data, but not with people or process. Or maybe your strategy is maybe also ad hoc and also not optimized. So I think it's a useful way of looking at this. I'm just going to, in interest of time, going to move on to the AI and then project management specific examples. So what is AI? I know there's a lot of people here that probably know about more or less on a high level what AI is. I've got some descriptions which are also described. And actually in the book, I'm going into a whole chapter, just going to all the different sections and details around that. But really AI is the capacity for a machine to reason, to perceive information or data, solve, optimize, prioritize, reach conclusions. And there's another part of it where I think some people, like say Max Tegmark in Life 3.0, talks about achieving specific goals. Just the ability of intelligent agents to achieve goals is showcasing artificial intelligence. For me, that's a very important part of it, but I think it's more than just that. So it's like the cognitive processes of machines. It is the ability to learn, to recognize, to analyze, and make decisions as well. And there is a learning process in this machine. So we typically talk about that as machine learning, and that is a subset of the broader AI field. So just to summarize and just look at it from different perspectives. So you've got your AI agent here or AI system here, similar to a human. We need to have sensors. You need to perceive. You need to get data. So there is perception happening. And then there's reasoning and learning happening. So with machine learning, we do build models, etc. And I'll show a little bit more about that. But then also, like with a human, you do have, or other types of animal intelligence, you've got effectors that can act, that can do some actions. You can see a wheel here, an arm, and so forth. But so if you think about robotics or drones or all of those kind of things, there's actions that you can take. So it's the perception, but also the actions. And basically AI is a machine's ability to do these things and obviously interact with an environment. And then so you can also look at it from this perspective where you can say it's the ability to perform certain tasks thought to require intelligence and things like logical deduction and inference. So just the ability to deduce things and make inferences, the ability to learn and adapt, the ability to make decisions based on past experience, or even, well, like humans, insufficient information or conflicting information, and then the ability to understand spoken and natural language. And specifically, I think with deep learning and so forth, we've made strides, going strides forward last decade in that regard. So if you look at the different tools, so the way I'm looking at smart technology and artificial intelligence, it's really a spectrum of, it's like a toolbox. And probably the most powerful tool in the toolbox is around artificial intelligence, is around artificial neural networks, which is it's a key tool in the toolbox. But there's also other tools there that's very useful, and it's horses for courses. What used to be a very powerful tool in the past, and also being used to a large extent, is knowledge-based expert systems. But then there's also genetic algorithms, specifically in terms of optimization, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then even tools like fuzzy logic, for instance. So if we look at machine learning and neural networks specifically, you would see that AI, I think it pretty much started in the 1950s, where there's some early AI excitement. And then especially in the 70s and 80s, machine learning began to flourish. And then, the last decade, deep learning started to flourish. And there were some breakthroughs. And that was largely responsible for the AI boom that we've seen the last decade. And I'll quickly talk about those kind of things as well. So if you look at artificial intelligence, it's a branch of computer science, develops machines and software with intelligence. And machine learning is a subset of that. And it's basically systems that can learn from data. So data is super important. And then deep learning is just a subset of machine learning, or a set of algorithms in machine learning that attempts to model high-level abstractions. And I will quickly give examples of that as well. So basically, the deep learning recipe is lots of data, and that's exactly what we've done the last 2 decades, just generate enormous amounts of data. And I've got a slide just talking about that. And I think it's also relevant from a project management perspective. We've got lots more of data to deal with. And then compute, it's a lot more compute capability. And then obviously there's some improvements in the algorithms specifically. So that's basically the deep learning recipe. And so if you look at the driving forces, and this is interesting, if you look at, this is 1986 to 2014, you can see how the world moved effectively from analog to digital in terms of just data availability. So in just not that long ago, most of the data was analog, and it became more dominant digital after that. So just the world's capacity to store, communicate, and compute information has been a huge driving force. And then the other one is computational power, where initially we use CPUs to optimize for serial tasks, sequential tasks, and then the GPU accelerators to optimize for parallel tasks. And then we even went to tensor TPUs, where it's actually dedicated processing units for neural nets, deep learning networks, and that changed the ball game. So suddenly we can do a lot more, and a lot more computational power. So also, if you think about traditional programming versus machine learning, a traditional program, you enter data, and you've got a program that you need to write, and then it produces an output. With machine learning, if we use that analogy, you've got abundant data. Typically, you give it output, specifically if it's supervised learning, or at least you can specify what is the cost function, what is it that I want to optimize, and what it actually does is to generate a program. Program in this context is a model, effectively, that models input data to output data, for instance, or that learns to optimize, or learns how to recognize things, to classify things, etc. So that is just a different. So it's kind of a different approach. So obviously you do have code that actually that represents the machine learning algorithms, etc. But effectively it generates a program, which is interesting. So if you look at the typical process there, you've got typically in supervised learning, you've got labeled data. So you feed into a machine learning algorithm that produces a learned model as you feed in data. And say in this case, it's a predictive model. It could be a different type of model, but if say the model does prediction, then that is what effectively you produce. That learned model is that program that I just referred to. And then you get different types of machine learning. And the reason I mentioned this is because when I look at AI in project management, I'm going to talk about a little bit about prediction tools. I'm going to talk about reinforcement learning or optimization, and all of this. These categories are all relevant. But in general, machine learning could be unsupervised, where there's no target, no output specifically. You just give it input data, and it looks at the natural patterns within the data to determine clusters and to learn. There's supervised learning. We actually provide a target, and it learns that input-output mapping. Reinforcement learning is slightly different from supervised learning, where you're not giving it specific outputs, but you're actually just saying that you're going in the right direction or not. So you almost like there's punishment and reward that you give, just to say you like warm or cold. You're getting away or getting closer to the solution type of thing. So that's reinforcement learning. That's the only signal that you provide back. And then optimization is where we actually optimize anything. You obviously have a cost function, and you try to optimize that cost function. So this is just another way of looking at that. So supervised learning could be Monday stock prices, and you try to predict Tuesday stock prices. But it could be a week ahead, a month ahead, whatever it is. It doesn't just need to be like that. It could be anything where you've got input data and you try to predict an output. And then unsupervised learning, there's just one application of unsupervised learning, is where you've got lots of data and you actually generate lots of clusters. You can say, this is the clusters, and if you feed new data in, you can tell which cluster they belong. So it's good for even classification purposes. This is just a well-known example of, just to illustrate supervised learning and how neural networks or deep learning can recognize a face. And we see a lot of these kind of applications with Facebook and so many other applications and apps that we see. And we actually feed it data there. And what it does typically, and this is very much on a high level, how our human vision system also works effectively, because in our brains, we also have systems and layers, neural network layers that's actually detecting edges. And then this is like what we talk about, the high level, the abstractions that we're looking at. So it's actually all the way going up. So it starts very low level with edges, and then looks at noses and eyes and components of a face, and then put the whole faces together. But it's really layered like that. So we just, with neural networks, just simulate pretty much what's happening in the human brain as well. And because we apply lots of data, lots of compute, we've got the algorithms to actually do that. We can do things like this. And this is just one type of application. There's many, many, many others as well. And the good thing about deep learning, I think, with the other types of machine learning, there was always a case where you don't actually get better performance if you give it more data. But with deep learning is data hungry. So because we can give it more parameters, you can actually increase the ability to learn, and the performance can just go up. Okay, just before I get to the project management specific examples, other things in the toolbox is like expert systems, which you would know it's like a knowledge base of facts and opinions of subject matter experts, and you've got an inference engine that can work with this knowledge base. And if you ask it questions, it can provide specific answers, and it's pretty much using if-then type of statements. It used to be, I think the problem here is it could be brittle. So the question is, how well can it generalize? But it is still a powerful technique, and it's still being used in so many applications still. The other one is genetic algorithms, which is like the neural networks that's mimicking what's happening in the brain. GAs are mimicking what's happening with natural biological evolution. So we get our ideas from natural systems effectively. You're looking at natural biological evolution processes and the social behavior of species. And we use the same kind of concepts there. So you're looking at selection, mutation, and crossover, and to arrive at near optimum solutions. So again, you can apply this type of technique also to project optimization, for instance, or process optimization. And then the last one that I wanted to emphasize, there's a lot more actually, is fuzzy logic. And fuzzy logic it's a bit more robust than pure expert systems. That's just 1 or 0 or Boolean logic. You actually can express things in degrees of truth. So like low, medium, high, or you can have many different classifications. And so you have got a mini valued logic that you can apply, which is quite useful. So this is also quite a powerful technique. So if you look at project management, I think where AI is disrupting project management is, I think in the past it's kind of more process-based adherence, where you get 30 to 40% project success, which is all useful. But I think clearly as we instrument the world and more data becomes available, we have more sensors and we can quantify things more. We're going from process-based to data-driven. So it's a more data-driven model, and we're using AI to make decisions based on data. So you can now look at different types of predictions, like you can now predict what's happening with this project. You can look at agile sprint prediction or risk around a project, or you can even look at stakeholder management, agile projects. You can look at resource issues, schedule issues, budget issues, communication, procurement, portfolio, quality, lots of things like that. And then if you think about reinforcement learning, just to apply that concept here as well, typically with reinforcement learning, one example is to say navigate through a maze. So you can start there and you want to end here. And in this case, it could learn through mistakes, and a mistake would be hitting a wall. So if you remember how to reach the exit, so basically you can actually use reinforcement learning to actually help manage this kind of process. But if you apply this now to a project, say a self-driving project, you can also learn, so instead of hitting a wall, learn to avoid common mistakes, or just implement solutions to obstacles, or always consider the end goal, project objectives, and make sure that you are in line to actually do that. So that's an example. Another one would be natural language processing, where you can say, I can now use, say, deep learning to look at documents. I can analyze the scope for completeness or errors. You can apply AI in that regard. Or you can say, and we see a lot of these applications, especially if you think about with even YouTube and Netflix and all these kind of things, Amazon, their sentiment analysis. So now we can apply deep learning or machine learning to evaluate communication for positive, negative sentiment. You can just put text data through it, and it can evaluate that. You can modify your communication plans based on that. And then for us, intelligent virtual assistants are very important. Even with Cortex Logic, we are building AI-driven health, wellness, and financial wellness solutions and platform plays. And a big part of that is an ultra-personalized virtual assistant as well. But again, for project management, you can use virtual assistant also not only for communication, but also as a way to instrument the project. Because if people interact, it's almost like a way to interact in real time with the system. And as you communicate feedback on progress and how you're doing, you've got valuable information that you can mine and that you can utilize as well. So it actually serves not only as a communication tool, but as a sensor. So here I'm showing virtual assistant for project management. You can get different levels. You can start with, say, basic retrieval of information, where this intelligent virtual assistant is just, if you ask it questions, it gives you answers. Level 2 would be one that not only just gives answers, but also understands some project management concepts built into the system. And that's what we do with the AI-driven person, or say the mental health or the health wellness solutions that we do provide, or financial wellness. We build in those concepts, and we make sure that the system understands some of those concepts. And again, you can do this with project management as well. And then you can link it to, a third level would be to link it to machine learning and expert systems as well, where you can have more advanced or learning capability, adaptability. Justin, I just want to make quick, everybody's quiet. I just want to make sure everything is still fine. I'm going through the last parts of the presentation. Everybody's still okay?
Yep, you'll see some thumbs ups coming up.
Yeah, fantastic. So, virtual assistant for project management. So, what does it mean in terms of level 3? So, you can ask questions like, how do I reduce my budget by, say, 5% without changing the project end date? And that's amazing if you can ask that type of question to, say, a virtual assistant. that maybe have built-in knowledge around project management and the typical things. So you can have a logic rule set that maybe checks for contingency, fund balance, or reduce overtime, evaluate pessimistic estimates, review risks, etc. You add machine learning to that before you actually respond as well. So here are some examples. I've got 5 different categories here of examples, and I'll show some other ones as well. ANN just stands for artificial neural network. So here is examples in engineering design, where a neural network can be used to select the most suitable structural system for a high-rise building subjected to wind and seismic loads. So you can try to be adjustable, make sure it's relevant for that particular environment and setup there. You can also apply optimization or genetic algorithms or even neural networks to optimize the life cycle costing of buildings in hot climates using different combinations of location, orientation, construction materials. So it helps to optimize using those kind of things. If you think about project planning, clearly you can use expert systems or knowledge-based expert systems to provide estimates of the duration and resource requirements for project activities based on that expert knowledge. And then you can use neural networks also to automate sequencing of project activities based on functional requirements. So that also helps project planning. And genetic algorithms, another example, to optimize the schedule for of construction project activities to minimize the total cost. And you can use fuzzy logic to help you determine project priorities in, say, portfolio management processes. And even with cost estimation, neural networks could be applied there as well. You can do some estimations to get a suitable markup to increase the possibility of winning tenders. That's an application. So this is all examples of where smart technology AI has been applied to cost estimation, and then also to predict possible cost overruns. You can apply it there as well, or you can apply fuzzy logic to look at optimization of cost time trade-offs in construction projects. And then on the risk management side, some examples here is you can estimate the probability of occurrence for project risk, allowing a more accurate quantitative approach to risk analysis. So that complements maybe other approaches, quantitative approaches to risk analysis. And neural networks can also be combined with Monte Carlo simulation to mimic human procedure of risk evaluation and adaptation. And this is interesting as well. If you're probably familiar with the game of Go and chess and all these kind of things, where they actually were using deep reinforcement learning and Monte Carlo search to actually generate these systems that can beat any human or any other system in a game of Go, in a game of chess. So just some examples of that as well. And then I think in terms of performance management, you can also use AI there if you've got data around performance, obviously, to predict the performance of future projects based on project parameters such as project managers' competence, contractors' abilities, contracting method used. Obviously, you need lots of data around different types of projects and their outcomes. But the moment you've got that, this is possible. You can use expert systems also to assess claims and provide expert decisions and so forth. So you can really apply it across the spectrum, and it's not just, it could be any of these kind of techniques used for these kind of application areas. There has been many or several applications. I think it's still early days, but as we instrument the world more, there's more opportunities to apply AI to project management to enable better project performance. And obviously, if you don't apply it right, you can make project managers' life miserable. If you apply it properly, you can definitely improve it. So one needs to be sensible also in how you use it. So it's horses for courses, and you shouldn't just apply it for just to get a kick out of it, or just to make just to say, I'm using AI. You got to make sure you're using it to make a difference. You should always measure: am I actually going forward? Or is it really helping me to be more effective? Deliver this project more effective? Is it removing some of the mundane things, making it easier, making the project more efficient, etc.? Okay, the last thing I wanted. Yes.
Okay, no.
Oh,
I
no,
think
fine.
if you say that's the last one, I was going to say I'd like to use that as
Yes.
maybe the opportunity to open up for some questions. Just where your previous slide,
Yes.
just where we speak of obviously AI and the potential of using it to either make a project manager's life a little less or maybe more miserable if you apply it correctly or incorrectly.
Yes.
There was a one question that asked, and if you are aware, are there any examples of companies that you are aware of that may have used AI in project management? So not necessarily in delivery management, but within project management. If you know of any, we could maybe find some of those case studies and share it amongst each other.
Yeah, I think that would be good. So I would recommend towards the latter part, I actually reference a specific book that talks about AI and project management with specific examples. And I would recommend that book because it summarizes some of the examples as well. I know, I think Amazon and some of these other companies, some of the tech giants are using AI pervasive through their business as well, and Google as well. I think it's less so with some of the other companies, but the examples that I've showed here, when I talk about engineering design and so forth, those are examples of where it actually has been used for those specific. So all the examples that I referenced here is examples of where it's actual applications. So it's early days, but you can see clearly on the engineering design, it depends on obviously the use cases, but I think we are really at the bottom of we really just started here with this. I can say from our perspective, even with my big companies and businesses and things that I've involved in, I've more used AI obviously in solving problems and building products and solutions. And obviously as we evolve, even with our project itself, because we generate lots of data around that, we will also move into that. Yeah, so I think it's really early days. It's like the Wild West, in my opinion, around that. So I actually have, yeah. So maybe what I want to do is, because I'm pretty much done here. Where's that book that I want to quickly reference? So please look at this guy. Paul Boudreau, Applying Artificial Intelligence to Project Management. So it's an actual book written on that. And this is one that I would highly recommend. I've looked at, he's actually a professor, well, he's obviously more academic, but he's referencing very practical examples as well in that regard. So would highly recommend that to look at that. There's not a lot of people I think, can I maybe just lose the last minute or two? Is there any other questions as well on this?
I don't see any hands at the moment. I will ask, either pop your questions in the chat or raise a hand. Doc, you can go on to that last slide and then we'll monitor for any hands.
Yeah. The last section here, and I'm not going to go into much detail. I just want to say, remember, with machine learning and AI, it doesn't matter even what technique in the toolbox, data is super important. And to make it practical for you, project document, all of those kind of data is super important. And if you think about, it depends obviously in what industries you apply it, but if you want to do data mining, knowledge engineering, the sources of data is typically machine or equipment data or process data. There's organization data and there's people data. And if you look at that, it's just example, I'm just giving some examples here of machine data. I think we're all aware of the types of machine data that's available there. So I'm not going to go into much detail there, but if you look at organizational data, there's obviously lots, depending on the different industries, various industries, and so forth. Typically, what I also find, maybe I just want to make a comment on this, because we've implemented many enterprise AI solutions for companies, and we see that data is typically in silos, and you want typically access to all available data. So you want to open it up. But this is typically the characteristics of organizational data: structure, silo, variability. And then we know people data, huge, especially with social media. It's an unbelievable amount of data being generated by people. And the time people spend on Facebook every day, 20,000 years. If you look at YouTube, 342,000 years of video watched every month on YouTube, and this is some stats from a while ago. So just crazy the amounts, and the amount of data that we generate is unbelievable here. And with people data, it's unstructured, fragmented, and variability. But with the machine learning, we can deal with this as well. So so that's not a problem. The last thing here is just around. We've got this tons of data. You obviously want to, the next level there is to make sure it's useful, organized and structured, that then becomes information. When it's knowledge, it's contextualized, it's synthesized, and wisdom, it's understandable, it's integrated, it's actionable, and that gives insights as well. So the task that we have, even within project management and with any AI application, is to actually tap into the value of data and then make more of that information, go on this data, information, knowledge, wisdom pyramid effectively. And this is just giving examples of that. So I'm just gonna, I think this is the last one, but knowledge discovery and data used to extract useful knowledge from large data sets of resources data to improve resource management practices. This is just showing the data mining. This is again using AI and other types of analytics. And data mining used to improve project cost estimation and scheduling of software projects. So I think that those are important applications. And maybe, so I think the benefits, I think maybe we should just end with this. Automate, obviously it's about any repetitive, tedious tasks you want to automate. This is where AI can help. Use historical data to perform calculations, predictions, improve the accuracy of results, and then perform risk modeling and analysis. That's another big one that I've referenced before as well. And you want to increase the speed of decision making, and then optimize the resource scheduling allocation. Those are some of the key benefits areas for that. Okay, so that's I'm going to end on that note there, Justin. So if there's any other questions, please ask.
100%. Thank you. I'm going to shoot straight into a thank you. I know a lot of guys are cognizant of time, especially a lot of us based at a client. So obviously trying to rush back there. But I think very, very importantly, and as we spoke earlier before this session, was just to speak around one of the benefits being the removal of those, as we call it, mundane, repetitive, tedious tasks from project management, actually freeing up the project management professionals to actually lead projects and actually do what project managers are meant to do, as opposed to being stuck as either schedulers and running through the mundane tasks. So thank you very, very much. I think that the content, for me, very, very important to thank you for trying to encapsulated in 40 minutes or 50 minutes. I mean, this being your life's work and that which is fully ingrained inside you, to try and give it to us in such a short snippet. Thank you very, very much. I think a lot of information, a lot of thinking that the team will have to do. I know if you consider what Quentin set out as what the MOYO Value Assurance Center is setting out to achieve.
Yes.
I think this is probably just the, as you say, we're at ground zero of our interactions and our learnings. So thank you very, very much from our side. I want to ask Quentin, do you maybe have, would you like to close off the session for us?
Yeah, sure. No, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ludik. And it's been fantastic. I think there's a lot of learnings for us to take from this, and certainly looking forward to collaborate on this in the future. We see a lot of potential and value in this, and we want to play in this space very soon. So yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for all the attendance.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Quentin. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you. And for those of us that are left on the call, I know a lot of guys are jumping off and saying that they will reach out to me. So we will be sharing Dr. Ludik's profile with all of the attendees. On their various means of communication to get in contact with Dr. Ludik should you want to pick his brain on any of the areas that he's spoken of. I've got one, Dr. Ludik. I will speak to Stanton Clark at some point after this, and he has a question around state spaces.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
So yeah, I think we definitely will be in contact again. I know as our organizations, we're trying to find synergies and do some stuff together. Charles and Tini are busy liaising and trying to set that up. So we look forward to another interaction with you. Maybe just talk more about what we can do cross organization. But other than that, thank you for today. Today was fantastic. It was really a wealth of knowledge and information that you shared with us in such a short space of time. But I think that's really got the synapses firing and wanting to. But you're not sure what question do you ask, because it's going to lead to something more and something else. So I'm going to close off at that point. I thank everyone for joining. Please reach out to me if there are any questions that you have for Dr. Ludik. What we can maybe do is compile a list of questions, and I can maybe fire that off to you, Doc, via email, and we can maybe either, if we have another session, or if you'd like to just respond to us via email, we can do that. But other than that, thank you. We wish you everything the best. We wish you to remain warm, remain safe, protect your family where you are, and we look forward to future engagements.
Fantastic. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Quentin.
Ciao then.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Great session.
Bye.